What I have up here are four studies that really transformed my thinking about wisdom and in general about the whole space of what it means to make good choices. And I'll tell you where I was coming from. Where I was coming from was this notion, I think very much in the situationalist or Kahneman-Tversky type paradigm, where there are heuristics and biases that people use, and that leads to potentially bad choices in some circumstances, and small changes in decision architecture can lead to improved choices. So that was really very much a focus on institutions to improve choices. And I have up here something that, in the context that I'm thinking about now a lot, poverty, something that tried to embody that. I thought this would produce a laser pointer, but pretend there's a laser pointer. Sorry? I think the button's on the side. Oh. No, it's the middle one. Oh, wow. Okay. So this is an example of this. This is consumption, caloric intake over the month for people on food stamps. You'll notice, and food stamps are given every month, and this is the last week. It's normalized to be 0. And you'll notice actually calories consumed fall significantly over that month. This is pretty remarkable in terms of not just, I mean, this is an inability to smooth the food stamps over that month. And this is true if you look at a variety of measures. Children, teachers in schools where there are a lot of children on food stamps report that in this last week, the children show up on Monday much less alert because they had very little to eat over that weekend. So this is really our starting point, and that really made me and spent a lot of time thinking about how do you change the institutions around poverty to change this type of behaviors. Let me move you to a second study, which really changed how I thought about this. This is a classic question in the Kahneman-Tversky literature, which is, would you, you're, let's say, buying, I'll give the one that is coming to mind. It's an awful one, but it's the old one. You're buying a calculator. You see it for $75 at this current store. You remember it being for $50 at a store that's 20 minutes away. Would you go? Same question, replace calculator with leather jacket, where 75 is replaced by 300. So that, would you again go for $25 savings? So what you tend to find in those studies is people use a funny heuristic. $25 for 20 minutes is not the calculation they make. They make the calculation $25 saved on 75. Well, that I'll do. $25 saved on 300, that I won't do. So that's I'm sorry, I'm colorblind here, but that's the red bars here, the usual samples. You'll see on a big reference point, people won't go. On a low reference point, people will go. What are the blue bars? So this red bar is the study that you can replicate this in any class as easily as you want. The blue bars is the same study replicated on a sample of the poor. And notice the poor are no longer showing this effect, which was kind of interesting. And if you look at this column, these two graphs, they kind of go in opposition to each other. This suggests some bad decision making, and this suggests actually they're much closer to our normative ideal, the poor, on these decisions than the well-off. So that was a big move, a big change in my thinking, which is it got me to think less about these sort of heuristics and biases than thinking about institutions, and ask, is there something to poverty that changes decision processes, and that poverty in and of itself results in a different decision process? Okay, that led us to, let me show you this one. So this study is the next, these last two studies are the next major change in our thinking on this problem. This study is kind of funny. Do you all know what Family Feud is? No? If you don't know Family Feud, it is the best quiz show on TV. I'm not joking. It is really amazing. I can tell you why offline. I think it's very intelligent. What we did is in Family Feud, we had a bunch of undergrads, pretty well-educated people come in, and we gave them a chance to play Family Feud for money. They played many, many rounds of Family Feud, and some people were made rich. What does that mean? That means they had lots of time for each round. Some people were made poor, which means they had very little time for each round. So this is poor in a funny way. This is like time playing in Family Feud, but they're playing for money. Now here's the funny part, and this really is kind of funny. We created in this virtual poverty the ability for the poor here to do some of the funny things the poor here do. So we gave them the ability to borrow. So some people had no ability to borrow. Some people could borrow, meaning they could spend more time on this round and slightly less time on the next round, and they'd get less time on the next round. Some people would borrow at a high interest rate. That's what these 3 bars are. Borrowing at a high interest rate means you get 1 more second now. Every second you use now leads to 2 seconds less in the next round. Now here's a funny fact. Start with this. These are the rich in our sample. Much like the rich in the world, the rich here do a good job in the sense, oh sorry, do I have this inverted? I'm sorry, this is performance. I don't have the other chart here. I'll tell you the other chart in a second. If I graphed borrowing, what you'd find is that the rich, when you raise the interest rate, they borrow a lot less. They're very interest rate sensitive. The poor in this world are very interest rate insensitive. They borrow irrespective of the interest rate. And this is end performance. The rich give them the ability to borrow and they perform a little better or no different. Give the poor the ability to borrow and all of a sudden they do much, much worse. Which is very weird and reminiscent of what you see in the poor and the rich in the world. But these are not poor, rich people. There's nothing, they're the same people, and there's nothing about them that has to do with poverty. And we've had a few more experiments to take apart what's going on here. So let me show you this one, which moves just to show you the universality of it. We've done more in this context to move to a totally different context. This is an experiment to show you how scarcity, which is a concept that we now think embodies all of this, having very little induces a different psychology. So what is in that column? That's a different kind of scarcity. We did an experiment where we gave people word searches. You guys all know what this is, like a square, and you have to find the word tree. And people were given a task of finding words like tree and chair and desk. I don't know why I'm thinking of things with wood. I suppose that's associativeness. And half the subjects were given before that other neutral words like glasses to find. The other half were given food-related words like donut and cake. And what we found was for non-dieters, whatever they saw before didn't affect their performance on the word tree. Dieters, on the other hand, if they just saw the word donut, they're much slower looking for the word tree. The word donut is gone. It's a different word search. But their mind is still on the word donut. And I think this is one of the lessons, and there's a few others that have emerged, that ties all this together, which is the key feature of scarcity, both in its good and its bad, is that it draws all our mental attention, it draws all our mental capacity, which has some benefits. The poor are really good in this case. The money poor are good at thinking about money and do a much better job in these tasks. On the other hand, it has some side effects. When you're looking for the word tree, you're thinking about the word donut. When you're thinking about solving this problem, you don't have the mental capacity to think about, well, gee, what will debt do to me in the future, because this problem itself is so engaging. So that's a glimmer of, I think, where we're starting to head, is towards a notion that there's something basic to scarcity that itself, it's in between institutions and purely personal. It's something in between. It's a situational thing that's a characteristic of a type of problem that we all tend to solve, whether it's time scarcity or money scarcity or calorie scarcity or whatever it is. It seems to evoke a very similar psychology. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you.